Hello, and welcome to Expect Surprises, part of the Let's Do 52 challenge. All right, what I have here is my number 10 round watercolor brush and some gold metallic paint. I am just making some really abstract tulip shapes, just kind of 3 petals with a kind of a parenthesis. So we go the one way using the brush to get our thin and thick lines, right? Come down the center in a little straight line, and then the other parenthesis on the other side. All right, you don't have to worry too much about your tulip shapes being perfect here. You see how loaded up I have that brush with that delicious metallic paint? You can really use any metallic that you want. In the other example, I used my bronze. This is that true gold. I absolutely love them. I will link this specific metallic watercolor set in the details below. And like I said, just continue those two. It's very simple. You don't have to worry about perfection. One thing you can do is go ahead and do a little Google search on tulips, and just kind of pay attention to their shapes, or not the leaves, but the petals. You'll look at the leaves too here in a minute. But just some of the petals are going to come over the others, right? Okay, so do a, little arrangement. I like an odd amount, you know that. This is a 7x11, just mixed media pad I'm working in here. Same thing for the stems, kind of push and lift to get varying, stem widths. It creates interest. If you just pull it down without, kind of pushing and pulling or changing the stem thickness, it's a little boring. So experiment with that. Your watercolor brushes are made to hold a lot of water and a lot of paint and pigment. So then we're going to do the same. We're going to have that same idea to do our stems. What I love about a tulip stem is or the leaves, I'm sorry. I love a tulip leaf because they are as tall and gorgeous as the tulip, right? They kind of just start at the bottom or lower, and they just kind of filter up. So have fun with this. I personally like to start at the stem and kind of pull up and down. You see there, we did a little bit of behind. Okay, we don't want everything to completely separate. Now what you're really doing here in this project is creating negative space. So our gold tulips are our foreground, right? And all of that white space behind is called negative space. And what we're going to do next is paint in each block or shape of the negative space with some gouache. All right, I'm using just a very basic gouache set from HIMI. I will link that down as well. It's not my Holbein or acrylic gouache or anything. It's kind of it's a good starter set. It's a good way to learn that your gouache should be a creamy texture. If you don't have gouache, you could use acrylic for this. I just love gouache because it dries matte and kind of flat. It's just more like butter. Sometimes you can get those lines in acrylic and whatnot. So that's why I'm using gouache here. And I'm just kind of determining some random negative spaces. Now pay attention to your color palette. You want to stick with 2 to 3 colors here, okay? You don't want to get too many tones in here because then it will just get a little crazy. Now, the other thing that I want you to pay attention to is you need to determine how you want to break up your negative space. So you can work from top to bottom, left to right. You can go completely random. You do you in this and experiment a few times. The other piece I did on a 6x6 watercolor paper, and I really enjoyed that size and working out with that. I would next time probably tape around the edges so I had a nice crisp border. Gouache works really well with that. You can see here I switched up into some of this beautiful magenta purple tones that I've kind of mixed up, and look at that color next to that like navy deep blue and the gold and a little bit of that teal. Oh, I absolutely love these three colors together. There, I'm grabbing in some more of the blue. And that's the other thing about gouache. We can change. They're not permanent like acrylic. We can go right back in there and kind of reactivate them. So I can kind of adjust this purple. And then see, coming in here at the end, I'm just blending where my two colors meet. Just a very barely wet, I know it looks like it's saturated, but it's a barely wet brush, and just kind of blending where my two color tones meet. I just love gouache for this reason. Okay, here we go with the fun meter. Posca pens, I think, work really, really well for this. Your jelly pens would work great as well. This is absolute creative intuition and your creative freedom. So you do whatever it is that you would like to do here. I kind of grabbed my favorite teal Posca pen, and I've decided to kind of have some sort of cohesiveness to this piece. I'm going to bring my mark making from left to right or right to left. I'm going to keep it horizontal as I'm working. Again, you could work any which way that you wanted, but just kind of fill in. This would also be a great spot if there's any Zen doodlers out there. These negative spaces would be really cool to kind of fill in with some Zen doodles. I'm not going to bore you with the slow process. I just have like a magenta color, or, oh, that's a light purple, kind of putting down some dots. And I just kind of had some fun with this moment. It's very therapeutic. You take your time. I did speed it up just because. Here I'm just adding some navy blue kind of like circle, not really even full circle shapes. And then, yeah, I had to do it. I had to grab my favorite Deco gold paint pen. You know I love how metallic that is. Okay, so now here we go. We come into my favorite. You're gonna take gouache again, okay? I opted for a very light pink on this one. And I'm going to paint in the petals with the gouache right over that metallic. Now the gouache is opaque, but you still get some of the metallic peeping through. I leave a little bit of space on, in some of the petals and around the outside. I'm not completely covering it. And remember, I can grab in some of the darker pink and add that white in. The way gouache mixes with itself and flows is it's just a wonderful layering medium. It's water soluble, so it's going to pick back up every time you paint over gouache. Okay, it is not an acrylic. If you're using acrylic, those are more permanent, and you're going to have a little bit of a different technique. Still beautiful. So we're going to just finish this last little tulip using the same parenthesis idea here, and just adding in a little bit of lights and darks, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to grab my metallic watercolor and a fine tipped brush, and I'm just going to go in and determine where I want those petals, which one is in the front, and just add those in there. Of course, the gouache is dried. You want to make sure that your gouache is always dry before you go in with something else, because you'll just pick that right back up. You actually want to use this very lightly too, because if you work it too much, you will, again, pick up that gouache and mix it right in to your metallic watercolor. So just kind of go in and add the little tulip shapes. And it's just a fun, whimsical little project. Now you could do so much with this, but I want you to have fun, explore color palettes, explore those supplies you have. Here's that other colorway with the bronze metallic and more pinks and reds.